Good morning, and thank you for joining us virtually for GLI's Business at Breakfast. I'm thrilled to be here with you today and excited for the agenda that we have lined up. The pandemic has undoubtedly changed the way we do things, but gatherings like these are a great way to feel connected and inspired to keep growing our economy. Because the pandemic has upended most of our plans for 2020, now is a great time to come together as a business community and hear how we can build a stronger workforce and economy moving into 2021. GLI understands the importance of economic development and is continuing our work to attract new business and industry to our region, even during these challenging times. However, we know business and industry can only function with talented and dedicated employees. And that's why today's event is focused on talent attraction, retention, and development. I think I can speak for all of us when I say that we want Greater Louisville to be a premier destination for top talent regionally and nationally. We all know the great things this city has to offer, from diverse industries to distinct culture and a unique food and art scene. Louisville is budding with possibilities. Things like our affordable cost of living, coupled with exciting industries that are on the cutting edge of innovation, help Louisville stand out from other similar sized cities. As the Chamber of Commerce, GLI is working diligently through our Live and Loop platform to attract talented professionals and leaders to Louisville. Later, Christine Tarquinio will share some exciting updates about that initiative and what is in store for 2021. She'll also share some exciting data that shows Louisville is a top choice for people relocating during this pandemic. While talent attraction is key to Greater Louisville's growth and success, we must also prioritize nurturing, supporting, and retaining our homegrown workforce. Too often, our top performers leave the region in pursuit of opportunities we're not able to offer here. In this case, we need to ensure we have high-paying and skilled jobs available to keep talent in our city. In that same vein, we know that equitable access to opportunities is a significant barrier many people of color face in Greater Louisville. A prosperous economy is only possible when everyone has opportunities to succeed. That's why GLI has worked over the last year to focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion within our businesses, economy, and community. We have a lot of work to do, but through the work of our Business Council to End Racism, our Minority Business Accelerator that we are getting ready to launch, and the execution of our Now Louisville strategic plan, we've created the foundation to be successful in creating an inclusive and more diverse workforce. We'll continue to work with our community partners to ensure that we're tackling all the underlying issues that keep Black and Brown people from equitable access to opportunities in Greater Louisville. We have a lot of exciting initiatives underway, and I'm confident that we will propel our economy forward through these challenging times, and we will create a dynamic and prosperous business community in the years to come. We've got a great group of speakers with us today who will share insights into how you as business leaders can contribute to this shared success by investing in your employees and cultivating the leaders of the future. I'd like to thank our sponsors who made today's event possible. Thank you to our presenting sponsor, LG&E KU, and our bronze sponsors, Action Coach Business Coaching of Louisville, TOPS Louisville, and Travel Host Louisville. I'd now like to welcome Stephanie Duncan, Director of HR for LG&E KU, to introduce today's speakers. Stephanie?
Thank you, Sarah. I'm excited to be here today to introduce today's Business at Breakfast featured speaker. Just briefly a little bit about LG&E KU. We are part of the PPL family of companies. We have approximately 3,400 employees, and we serve more than 1.3 million customers across more than 90 counties, including 5 counties in Virginia. So today's speaker, Jennifer Mackin, is Principal and CEO of Oliver Group and President and Partner of Leadership Pipeline Institute US, 2 consulting firms where she enables companies to transform by inviting their leaders to revolutionize the way they develop people. During her career, she has worked with over 500 companies regarding their leadership development and succession needs. As an owner of Oliver Group, she has increased the company's size and footprint by 6-fold. Jennifer has over 25 years of experience shaping the way that leaders do business. Most recently, she released her first book titled Leaders Deserve Better, a leadership development revolution that brings attention to a leadership development crisis that endangers the long-term viability of organizations across the board. Please join me in welcoming Jennifer Mackin to share her insights and expertise on molding employees into leaders of the future. Jennifer will be taking questions at the end of our conversation today, so please use your chat feature you will have on your screen to submit. Jennifer?
Hi, good morning. You can hear me, right? That was, Stephanie, we had a little bit of difficulty hearing you. I just wanted to make sure everybody could hear me and that I'm sharing my screen. There we go. Awesome. Welcome. I'm glad to be with everyone today. And I know many of you. And it's great to be able to share thoughts with other community leaders that care about business and people. You know, and if there were ever a time to be involved and focus on leadership, it's now. One way to be involved is to lead our teams differently through this massive change and remote way of living and all of the world uncertainty. You know, I was almost finished writing my book when the pandemic hit us in March. I had no idea the timing would be so critical for my message. Leaders must show up very strong during the change, remote living conditions, and world uncertainty that I mentioned. Stepping back though, why did I write this book in the first place? So after 25 years plus in consulting, I have seen poor leadership. I have seen very, very strong leadership, but overall companies are not preparing their leaders for what we are encountering today or what we will encounter in the future. The leadership development approach that we've been using doesn't work, that we've been following for decades. And when I ask senior team members if their leaders are ready, most say their leaders either aren't ready or they don't know if they're ready. So of course, if you don't know, we probably aren't ready. So what do you think about your leaders? Think about if your leaders are handling this crisis well. Do they know how to drive your new strategies? We all have new strategies through the business to deal with the new world. I wanted to share that billions of dollars, over 500 billions of dollars are spent every year on leadership development. Also want to share that the studies, even current ones, show that CEOs in particular care about talent retention, leadership development, and their top 3 focus areas. So I would say there's a disconnect when CEOs care about that, billions are spent, and yet leaders aren't ready. And leaders deserve better. So Forbes Books came to me a year ago and asked me to write this book and help me to solidify the message, because there are so many leadership books out there. And most leadership books are about how do we develop competencies in our leaders? How do we become a better leader? And my message is different. This is really more about the C-suite's responsibility for development of leaders. You know, historically, development of leaders has been really delegated to human resources departments. And human resources certainly needs to spearhead development, yet the leadership team needs to be involved differently to ensure that development sticks for each leader. This is about the environment of our companies being ready for learning to be adopted. So, okay, given that, how can we build stronger talent pathways and pipelines, recruit and retain people, and ensure their success? We need a few days together for this, but I have 30 minutes and I will share as much as I can. You can also go to jennifermackin.com. It's a new website that's been put up with more information there on this content this morning and other content if it's helpful to you. We need a leadership revolution. I'm hopeful that I started to build a case for the urgency for this solution. You know, it isn't so much about problems with the programs themselves that leaders participate in, and yet content and delivery do need to change. The bigger problem is that the C-suite doesn't see it as their responsibility to develop leaders, and they aren't involved like they need to in whatever development they do execute. There are a few things every company should do to make sure the people strategy and the business strategy are interwoven. That's really key here. We want to make sure that wherever we're taking our businesses, that the people strategy of how we're going to prepare our leaders are connected in. We also need to make sure that leaders are leading the charge with development. So from the senior team to the next layer to the next layer, who is in charge of making sure that our people are ready? Also, there need to be ways to reinforce learning when we get back to the workplace. Where can we practice? How do we make sure that we're putting it in play? And then leaders need to get face-to-face with each other. Then it will stick in this way. So leadership development departments are asked to create curriculum and have often gotten further and further away from what the business needs. And I am not putting fault with our leadership development friends. This solution cannot be delegated. That's what I'm saying. From senior teams of the organization cannot be delegated away from this group of people. It's a joint collaborative effort that's required. Well, we've also been using some old methods. We have used a lot of digital, and I really, truly, even though technology is getting better, this digital of watching somebody deliver content and trying to absorb it and learn it and use it is still not working. We can self-teach ourselves some of these concepts, but how do we even know what those concepts should be? What should we be teaching ourselves? And does that get adopted? Universities are trying to teach our leaders, but they're somewhat removed often from the real world, and it's more theoretical. And then, of course, we've got these lectures that we've all been in that are kind of snooze fests that we need to move away from. So these are some of the things that companies do that don't work. So let's get away from this type of development, because we've all been there, right? And move toward something different. So I want to focus on a couple of key areas that I suggest as part of this revolution. I want to go over them again. I mentioned them a couple slides back, but I want to go over them again with you. So first of all, we need to make sure the people strategy is connected to the business strategy. Now, when you think about where your company is headed, then you need to make sure that your leaders are able to reach that strategy, realize that strategy at each level of leadership. The people strategy is really just putting that plan on paper of what do your people need to do to be able to take the organization to the next level. Ultimately, if the leadership team, human resources are aligned with the leaders who are participants of the programs, then the leadership team will make sure there are resources and available for the development. HR will be developing programs that are accurate, what are needed, required for the organization's success. And then the participants will see, how is it connected to my job? How is it connected to our success? And everyone will be aligned there. Secondly, the leadership development must be leader-led. For this to work, we first see development in a company's top initiatives. Is it even in your plan about how people need to help you accomplish your goals? Also, leaders need to have part of their job descriptions about people development. This is how leaders lead development, is if it's part of their job, if it's measured, if they're compensated that way. This then will become an internal development engine for you. You will have every leader developing their people all along the way on a daily basis. That's pretty cool when that happens. That changes cultures. So the third thing that I recommend is that there's reinforcement and practice. So often, if you think about it, if you've ever gone to a development program and you come back into your work life and you've got this much stacked up of work to do when you come back, it's very difficult to put the information that you just learned, even if it's really good, into action. So I recommend a lot of different things around how to practice, how to reinforce, and put those skills into play. And lastly, the thing that we can't do a lot right now is I believe there needs to be face-to-face components for leaders to really learn their jobs well is to be around each other, learn from each other, wrestle with situations with each other, and then we're going to have more success. So an example of ill-prepared leadership, most of us have had a boss that wasn't focused on our development. Think back to, hopefully you're all working for someone that is, but when they weren't focused on your development, they didn't take the time to help us plan our next career moves. When they don't see development as a primary responsibility, what happens? We can see that people are not getting time with their leader. They're receiving less direction than they need. Sometimes leaders are even taking credit for work done by the team. These are some of the things you might see happening that says that they do not see that as a responsibility of theirs. So having a boss that isn't helping people grow is because of their lack of preparedness 99% of the time. I mean, most people aren't bad. It's just they're not prepared. Actually, leaders will have been in their position for 7 years on average in a leadership role before they get development about how to lead people. So we really need to focus on how do we change this. So imagine for a minute that every employee and every candidate at your company understood the various future paths they have with their career for their company. Not only that, but they see all the requirements for success every step they take. Do you think if you had these paths, they would be more likely to hit a target that they can see? And so it's really a bit of a rhetorical question, but it's also easier said than done. So I want to show you what I mean with two different paths, leadership path and a specialist path. So if you think about a leadership path, leaders go from being an individual contributor, where we all start when we jump into our work careers, more than not. Then we go to leader of others. We lead other people. Then we lead other leaders as the next passage. And then we become a functional leader, really ultimately an enterprise leader. Every passage, every transition requires a few different things every time you make that shift. One, we need different work values. So what work do we value as an individual contributor? What work do we value when we start then leading others? Where do we spend our time? Time application is really important as we shift to a new level. And then, of course, skills, which we tend to focus on the most, which is what skills do we need at each level? Each level has a different job to do that adds value to the organization. So, for example, if you're an individual contributor, your focus is about being part of the team, being a professional, doing your piece well for the organization. When you become a leader of others, it really takes I think the biggest shift. This is then about coaching other people. It's not about you, it's about others. It's about selecting top performers, setting goals and prioritizing. So it really has to be a big shift in our brains about what does leadership mean as we move up this leadership path. Specialist path is very similar. So we come in as a professional. These are just titles your titles will fit into one of these categories. You move then to a knowledge leader, knowledge expert, knowledge contributor, knowledge expert, knowledge leader. So in this case, a professional is going to focus on high quality technical work, being a team player, prioritizing their work, relationship building, using company tools, things like that. Then when we shift where we spend our time, work that we value, and skills, as a knowledge contributor, for example, we are then proactively finding better ways of doing work. How do we drive improvement in our organizations? We then have to make time available for colleagues and giving feedback and building your professional brand at that point, because you are becoming more of a specialist. So if we're able to share these paths with every candidate to make sure they're up for the role that they're applying for, it would be huge. We share with them, here are the expectations. Here's what it means to be to move up as a specialist. Here's what it means to move up as a leader. This is what we require. These are expectations we have. So they know what they can strive toward. This is how we build a pipeline of prepared people. So what if we don't do that? If leaders don't do their jobs at the right level, they cannot unleash the potential of their direct reports. Leaders equal execution power. So let me give you an example. Imagine a healthcare facility. We have a lot of healthcare companies in Louisville where a leader leads 10 people, 10 direct reports, okay? They're not getting results at this facility. Less productive than other facilities around them. So one option would be the leader of these 10 people saying, I'm going to work harder. I'm going to work longer. We've all been there where things aren't going the way we want to, so we put in more effort. We put in more time as the leader. So let's say this leader puts in 10% more effort or time in. It's going to make a little movement. But let's just suggest another leader in the same position says, I will help each of my direct reports to be 10% more productive. 10 people, 10% more productive. So who's going to win? That is execution power that I'm talking about. How do we multiply the effect of our team? And that's by the leader working with their direct reports to make sure that they're providing as much as they can for the team. Teaching leaders how to do this equals talent development success. This is leaders' first responsibility. We tend to focus on the functional aspect, or the financials, the operations, human resources, technical things, but developing people should be the first responsibility. The ripple effect of poor readiness is that you won't be able to realize your strategy through your people. So we can talk all about engagement or turnover and other effects of leadership being poor, but nothing is as big as not realizing a strategy, especially now with the pandemic and everybody changing their strategies to either take advantage of where we are in our economy or just keeping up. So let's think about recruitment and retention changes. Let me start by sharing a bit about some pandemic results that we have from a study in August. We surveyed leaders across the country to say, how did your leaders fare during this pandemic time? This was in August, so it's been going on for a few months. We found that leaders had really strong survival responses, with market-focused, goal-oriented leaders responding positively to guiding this ship, shifting things around, prioritizing other things, and driving this new messaging through the organization. Also, they've been able to focus on well-being of their employees and really taking time, as we're remote and in the majority of cases, or having to come in and deal with all kinds of other challenges. This leader's proactivity, response planning, and employee care were really good strengths. Challenges, however, were how to best communicate to employees. So it's been very directive. Here's where we're going. Here's what we're doing. Here's how you can help. But it's been harder to communicate two-way, back and forth, so that employees feel included, where their feedback is sought out and heard. So how can this be collaborative? And how can we then, care about well-being, but also hold our teams accountable? That is so difficult. So I heard a new phrase that I like called empathy fatigue. I don't know if that hits you like it did me, but I'm thinking, yes, it's hard. So there's so much personally going on with health concerns and the pandemic, and socially with the racial strife and political craziness. And it's just getting challenging to continue to focus on well-being while also make sure that the objectives are reached. So now more than ever, flexibility will lead companies to getting the best talent and retaining them. Corporations and even smaller organizations tend to not move fast enough through their job pivoting, good enough at shifting what jobs need to be done and explaining that to their teams. So flexibility is going to be key. So think about those struggling right now in the workplace. Women and minorities have been set back potentially years and years with this pandemic, given inequity. They've never been equal. We have never been equal in the workforce, measured by pay for the same job and equal promotions. Now, what we know for sure is that women are leaving the workforce in much larger numbers than men. I last looked at the September data. 617,000 women left the workforce in September compared to 78,000 men. 12%, men were 12% of those that left the workforce. Half of the women were of prime working age, 35 to 44. The effects include not only having to remove themselves from the workplace, but also taking lower paid roles in a lot of cases to gain that flexibility, or to take one with less demands and less pay to take care of outside needs and their family needs or health needs. Men are also statistically getting more raises since the pandemic started, which I don't really know why, all the reasons for this, but that's also happening. So there are many, many different reasons minorities have not had the same opportunities and potentially have different needs filled right now in the workplace. So we must reach them where they are. Everyone on this call has something to deal with that's different. Quarantining, taking care of a parent, health challenges, isolation, helping kids learn from home, worry for the country with politics or racial justice focuses. We really have to bring a personal side to our businesses, which is counter to certainly what I've experienced. I think what most of us experience. We didn't bring our personal selves to the workplace. That is required now, that we as leaders bring that out of our team members. Ask people, what do you need? Find ways to be flexible to meet those needs. Companies that win will be flexible. So what I want to do is I want to end with who's responsible for all of this. So I want to ask you, are you a CEO? Are you a CFO, CIO, CHRO, other C? Anybody on this call in that category, everyone on the senior leadership team should be held accountable for leader development in some way. I implore you to work together to revolutionize your leadership development, your business, one business at a time. Identify the focus areas for you to improve your leadership development. And this will be a culture shift that will elevate Black talent, women, and others with less representation. Company has an obligation to focus on development of people, to focus on showing employees a path, making sure every employee has a development plan. You'll move the dial in your diversity efforts by showing every individual how they can belong, by being invited to all opportunities for advancement, to be shown the path for advancement, which will then have an influence on the entire environment. It'll change how people behave through setting expectations that every single individual that reports to leaders are developed. I believe we've never arrived in our leadership journey. We can only take steps every day to be the best leader we can be. So thank you for inviting me to be part of this morning. And right now I am excited to turn back over to GLI and discuss how many of the leadership strategies I've discussed are being implemented in our city's talent attraction initiatives. So I want to welcome Christine Tarquinio, GLI's Director of Marketing and Brand Strategies, to discuss the most recent updates to Live in Lieu. Christine?
Thanks, Jennifer. That was very fascinating and one of my personal favorite topics. I think we can all agree that both good and bad leadership can certainly be equally impactful. So I did want to take just a few moments to update you on some of the initiatives underway at GLI when it comes to talent attraction, retention, and development. GLI entered into the talent attraction area en masse in late 2016 with the development of Live in Lieu as our flagship for talent attraction, retention, and development. But Live and Lou really started to take off toward the end of 2017 when we actually had the resources to dedicate to this work full time. In 2017, we initiated some market research to determine the best way to reach potential talent. We looked at geography and found that a 200 to 500 mile radius is the most desirable area. And then we also, most importantly, asked, well, what motivates people to pick up and move someplace new? And we found that there were three main areas that were common to most everyone that had moved or was considering a move. The first, obviously, is the availability of good jobs and business opportunities. Second was quality of place. So people were concerned that they could move someplace that was suitable to raise a family. And then finally, and most surprisingly, was the ability to make a difference. People are very concerned that they have some way to impact their community in a positive way, whether that be through starting a nonprofit, volunteering, getting involved in a board, serving your community, civil service, some way that they could make an impact that would change their community positively. In 2018, we initiated a targeted talent advertising campaign. It was a 4-month campaign targeting nursing and tech talent. Those were two of the job codes that were at the time projected to grow the most between now and 2026. It was a completely digital campaign, and we presented the results of that campaign at the Business at Breakfast featuring Live in Lou and Lou City last year. At the same time, then 2020 hit. And all of our best laid plans for 2020 went out the door. We had a great strategy moving into 2020 of how we were going to engage talent and how we were going to shift our focus. But as the pandemic started and went on, we started to notice that we were actually seeing a trend of people who to wait out the pandemic. Light bulb. So we decided, let's see if we can target these people that have moved home and see if we can convince them to stay home. And I think, from the qualitative data that I've captured from people who did just that, the bulk of those people expected the pandemic to last, maybe 6 weeks or a month. And here we are 8-something months later, and with workplaces shifting to work from home models and digital engagement, they bought houses here. They got sick of staying at their parents' house and decided, forget it, I'm going to buy a house. So that's definitely been a positive thing for us. In fact, Redfin just recently published a study of new residents in the third quarter of 2020, and Louisville was listed as the #2 place where people that were looking for houses moved. Let's see, we saw engagement from New York, Lexington, Chicago, Cincinnati, Washington, D.C., Los Angeles, Dayton, Seattle, San Francisco, and Denver. So that's where the 233 net positive movers came just in the third quarter, just from Redfin. So we're seeing some great engagement. At the same time, at the onset of the pandemic, while we were getting national positive attention for how Governor Beshear and Mayor Fisher were handling the pandemic response, we started looking at cities that didn't have as positive of a response, like Nashville, Atlanta, and Chicago. And we targeted individuals in those cities that had a connection to Greater Louisville in some way. But, looking forward, those are small individual targeted campaigns. And what we discovered when we executed the 2018 campaign is, yes, we got a lot of great engagement. We got a lot of people interested, but we didn't have a way to link it back to how many people that saw our communications actually moved to Louisville. So at the beginning of 2020, we developed a strategy of private label campaigns. So here we're partnering with organizations in the region that are looking to hire talent, and then we execute a targeted digital ad campaign on their behalf. So for example, right now we're currently working with a healthcare company who is looking for registered nurses and respiratory therapists. They already had a geographical footprint that they wanted to hire talent from. And so we performed an analysis of those cities, and we compared them in terms of cost of living and salary comparison. So we looked for cities that had an increased number of registered nurses and respiratory therapists at a more favorable cost of living here with an equal or better salary. And once we had that list, we had a target list for us to begin our advertising, which is going to be digital, social, website retargeting, and geofencing. All of those ads are going to pass through a hidden page on our website, liveinlieu.com, that will have a little bit of information about the region and what it's like to live here, as well as all of the open position for this employer. So this is going to create a closed system so that we know that all of our ads got served, we know where they clicked on, where they went to, and then they count the applications that come in. The beauty of this campaign is that, if you're looking to hire talent, that's your area of expertise. Digital marketing and advertising maybe necessarily isn't your area of expertise. So we take care of all of the research, the strategy development, and the optimizations. So if we see that one platform is generating particularly high engagement, we might optimize to reallocate more funds to that platform and pull them away from another platform that isn't performing as well. So we review that analysis on a weekly basis and report it to the hiring manager and say, here are the recommended optimizations that we have. And all they have to do is say yes or no. So it really takes all of the hard advertising work off of the responsibility of the hiring manager. Looking to 2021, we hope to continue this private label campaign strategy, hopefully increasing the number of companies that we can work with and provide the service to so that we can expand Live and Lieu's reach out into the region as far as possible. We're also looking to expand some of our capabilities to help employers, from developing more robust internship programs and resources to continuing to expand our relocation resources and more. I would be remiss if I didn't tell you that if you go to liveinlieu.com and you click on employer resources, we have a ton of content that has been developed to help you target talent. And then I'm sure that Sydney will send out our contact information. So if you need anything or have any questions, you can feel free to reach out to me. The last thing I'll say about the private label campaigns is these work great for companies that are looking to hire large swaths of talent, and they can be expensive, right? Because advertising takes money. So we're also looking for alternative ways of how we can help companies to target more surgically and find more specific types of talent. So there will definitely be more to come on that in the near future. Apart from these updates, I did want to go ahead and make just two final points. For us to attract top talent to our region, it's critical that people outside of the region view us as welcoming, accepting, forward-thinking, and supportive of diversity. And while we're developing messaging strategies to reach potential talent, this has to be at the forefront of our communication. So through our advocacy work, GLI continues to prioritize inclusive policies and steer elected officials away from policies that don't support our work to become an inclusive community. I think we can all agree that if there was ever any doubt in anyone's mind about the importance of creating an equitable and inclusive community, that doubt has certainly been removed. And then finally, since I have your attention here, I also wanted to mention our City Champs program. City Champs is a collection of volunteers that are passionate about Louisville and have been trained to be good resources for new or prospective residents. So it's a really diverse group of outgoing, engaged individuals who love the region and want to share it with others and help them get connected. This is a great resource for anyone who is looking to attract talent. You as a hiring manager, or you as a prospective resident, can just go to liveinlieu.com, click on City Champs, and you can reach out to people that can help you, get a sense for what it's like to live here, help you get plugged in once you are here, and really keep you engaged. We actually have our 2020 training session tomorrow, November 19th, and we'll have experts in from LMPD JCPS, the Center for Neighborhoods, Yelp, and many more to help coach our champs on the best ways to talk about Louisville. So if you are interested in participating, you certainly may. Just please reach out to me and we would be happy to have you. Okay, switching gears, I do need to point out that GLI does not do this work alone. We have many investors and community partners that we rely upon for their suggestions and guidance. One of those trusted voices belongs to Nathan Shanks, an insurance advisor at Logan Lavelle Hunt. Nathan co-led Now Louisville's talent alignment team in our 5-year strategic plan development, along with Steve Cunanan from the American Red Cross. I would like to welcome Nathan into the conversation so that he can give his thoughts into the future of Louisville's talent attraction. Nathan?
Hey everybody, how's it going? Can you guys hear me? I don't know if I'm muted or not. Okay, cool. So as Sarah and Christine mentioned, GLI's 5-year strategic plan, Now Louisville, is a roadmap to lay out the fundamental initiatives to advance our region and transform perception of Louisville to help differentiate us from other cities. So we've identified 6 pillars that'll propel Greater Louisville to the next level. Those are innovation, startups, clusters, talent, inclusion, and connectivity and mobility. We spent a lot of time talking about talent retention, attraction, and development today, so I'll just share how the talent pillar of Now Louisville will complement all the strides and initiatives already underway over the next 5 years. We know talent is one of the few factors that is locally based and has the potential to differentiate us from our competitors. We have to manage the quantity and quality of talent in our region to ensure we are competitive as industries evolve in the future. That means attracting talent for rapidly advancing industries. GLI's work in the talent space will be focused in 4 key areas. The goal obviously being attracting and retaining top talent, creating pathways for talent to connect to jobs, and developing support services inclusive of all workers and employers. The first key area is increasing industry involvement and coordinating engagement for educational initiatives across the talent development spectrum. The second being leveraging the annual occupational needs assessment to actively inform and educate students, parents, and educators on career opportunities that exist in the region's industry clusters and educational requirements for desired career pathways. The third is scaling career-oriented learning opportunities like internships, co-ops, and apprenticeships across the region. And the fourth is expanding Live in Lieu to focus on career opportunities within key industries. To make this happen, we brainstormed some key metrics we think are crucial towards becoming a destination for top talent nationally. I have a list here of a few examples. Launching and marketing a workforce ecosystem hub so employers can easily learn about workforce programs, initiatives, and organizations in one place. Engaging with employee training institutions to create awareness of program needs and provide support. Creating workforce resources related to things like internships, recruitment, and removing barriers to work. Developing a Teach externship program. Connecting employers with work-based learning opportunities for disconnected youth, developing and launching an internship portal and holding employer internship coaching sessions, deepening university connections around the region, and increasing City Champ participation so we're welcoming new employees and showing them what Louisville has to offer. We're confident by taking these steps, we can improve Louisville's standing as a top place to relocate, live, and work. So that's just a little rundown. Now I'll turn it back to Christine. I think she's going to moderate a few questions for me and Jennifer for our remaining time.
Thanks, Nathan. Just as a reminder, everybody, I'd like to go ahead and encourage you to enter any questions that you may have on leadership development or talent attraction, retention, and workforce development, and we will be happy to answer. But in the meantime, I already have, excuse me, a couple of questions that have come in. So I'm going to start with you.
Okay.
You discussed a little bit about how successful leaders have adapted during the effects of COVID-19. How, in general, do you see leadership and businesses growing their talent in a post-COVID environment? And how do you think that's going to change over the next few years because of our shared kind of experience through this whole thing?
Yeah, I think we're going to have to continually bring in the information that we're seeing, and moving quickly to make changes happen now more frequently than ever. So, we maybe looked at our strategies on an annual basis. Now we're looking at them at a quarterly basis. So I think in terms of success with that, we have to look at the information coming in about our customers, about the economy, about everything going on, and figuring out how does that apply to me? How does it apply to my team? Relook then at expectations for everyone and clarify what success looks like, making sure that everyone's kind of connected in and aligned with each of our leaders, and that there's buy-in collaboratively, that we're headed in a certain direction. So I also think there's got to be more check-ins along the way. I think we're going to be remote for a while. I'm so excited to hear about the vaccines coming out, but it's going to take a while to get everybody. And then there's the whole side of, will everyone feel comfortable getting back together? How will we do that? So it's really about adapting and changing very quickly, would be my thought of what we're going to see. We're going to see technology adapting. We're going to see that we're going to learn from this time and take the things that we've learned and make the workplace better, have better interactions with our team because of technology. So I don't know what it'll look like in 3 years, because it's going to change even more than we can't even see what that might look like right now.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think we've all learned how to be a little comfortable with uncertainty, or at least a little more comfortable with uncertainty.
Yeah, right.
Kind of along the same lines, the pandemic has certainly shifted how we think about leadership, but so has equity and inclusion. What strategies do you think leaders need to employ to really be committed to increasing equity and inclusion, not just in their workforce, but through their leadership, through their boards?
Yeah, it's a big question, Christine. I think that I don't think it's being done well yet. And I'm still trying to figure out, what do we need to do differently? Because certainly just having programs in place to learn about bias and, all of that's important, that we all learn what this is and what we're doing that is impeding progress. But we need to measure how we're doing. We need to set the course of strategies, and the board and the leadership team have huge roles. Just like they have roles in leading development, they have to be leading this charge. And what that means is going to be different for every organization. But when I've seen it done well, it's tied into all of their strategies. Everyone is living it out as best they can. And then, that's where I would say leadership development really comes in, is helping leaders to understand, how do you develop every single employee, every single leader along the way, so that you don't leave anyone out. Everyone is equal in that opportunity for advancement, and that they see the opportunities within the organization from the onset. So I think it's a really difficult question, and it has to be at that very top level throughout the organization, not in human resources, just like leadership development.
Yeah, that seems to be the case with all initiatives, right? If you get buy-in at every level and you really commit to it and you make it a part of the fabric of your organization, you're going to have a lot more success with that than you would if it's siloed into one department.
That's right. That's right. And I think most organizations that do it well also have a key diversity leader directly reporting to the CEO. Not to the CFO, not to the COO, but straight to the CEO, and have that connectedness and that constant interaction to make sure that works.
That's a really interesting point. I would always just think you go whoever your report is, but that is a whole nother level of commitment, isn't it? So I'd like to open this up to both you and Nathan. We talk a lot about proactive strategies and initiatives to attract talent to the region, but what about the things that we're not talking about? what are the misperceptions of Greater Louisville, or what are the things, the challenges that we have to overcome, or what do you see as the hurdles that keep people from moving here? I'm particularly interested in that, as I'm tasked with trying to overcome those hurdles, and I would really like to get your thoughts on that.
You want to go, Jennifer? Or you want me to take this one?
Go ahead, Nathan. I'll jump on at the end.
One thing that sticks out in my head is we find ourselves, or at least I am guilty of this too. I find myself comparing us to other cities. And while that's good, we want to see what makes other cities successful and what they're doing right. But I don't want to lose our image or our identity by just doing something that another city does. I think it's important to take what they're doing that's successful and kind of make it our own, and maintain our image, if you will, of our community with the bourbon and things like, and derby and horse racing and things like that. So make sure we're not just another Nashville or Indianapolis or Cincinnati, that we make it our own.
Yeah, I would add on to what you're saying, Nathan. I agree, and would say that we all have a responsibility to know what all the advantages to Louisville are. So the more that we can be informed about all those great things about our community, that is a draw to lots of different people. So even more than what's attractive to us, whether it's the arts or, all the great restaurants we have, but also the people and the environment that we live in with all the parks. I mean, there's just so much that we can offer. So when we do recruiting for our clients, for ourselves, we make sure to ask leaders or ask who we're trying to recruit, what do you care about in the community? And then link it to what they care about, and share with them specific things that are going to be helpful. So I think each company we can each do our part by being informed and informing any candidate that is looking to move here, because I don't know that we need to change what we do. I think it's a PR thing, Christine. It's a getting the word out and making sure that everyone knows how great it is to be here. But also listen to them about what do they need, and making sure that we continually adapt as well.
Yeah, a great way to do that would be to attend our City Champs training session tomorrow at 1 p.m. It is a virtual session. But yeah, you make a really great point. It's oftentimes people forget to look at it from the perspective of the person that is coming here rather than their own perspective. So, Nathan, I'd like to ask you to talk a little bit about one of GLI's initiatives for the Now Louisville strategic plan, the Career Acceleration Network. I personally think this is going to be a game changer in how our workforce grows, but I didn't really spend too much time talking about it today. So could you update us a little bit about it?
Yeah, definitely. So the Career Acceleration Network, it's an initiative that'll bring together higher ed, training providers, and employers. It'll be from various industries with the goal of providing employees pathways from low-skilled, low-wage jobs to technical, skilled jobs that they're able to support their family. It's going to take an initial investment from the employers. It's because employers have varying skill level needs. The tiered program allows employees to advance into roles at various companies as skills are developed through higher ed and training program partners. It benefits workers and employers alike. Employees benefit through increased mobility, earning potential, while employers will experience higher employee satisfaction and increased access to eager talent. The ultimate goal, really, of the initiative is to create equitable access to pathways for career advancement.
So if you have somebody that is making, $9 an hour working at a fast food joint, that fast food joint would partner with a GE or another company where that employee could move from the fast food joint with training through a new program into GE, where they're increasing their salary and have the ability to come up to a livable wage.
Right.
like I said, it's going to be a game changer.
I 100% agree. I think it's amazing. I'm
Great
really
opportunity.
Jennifer, I'm going to go ahead and give you the last question here.
Okay.
For any businesses that may not have a formal onboarding or growth pathway process currently in place, what are the first steps or the most important steps to take away when developing those systems?
Well, there's so much to it. I think that I would go first back to basics of what is the organization's mission, vision, values, and can you tie each new employee that you're onboarding to connect in with that, and making sure they understand it and how that role is tied to helping achieve those objectives that you have for the organization. And then, really outlining current roles again and what's expected, as I mentioned, and having development plans for each person. But then what's really hard right now about onboarding is we're all remote. And so we can't get together as a team. So even virtually getting together as a team is really critical right now. Providing, if you're onboarding a new leader, providing them with a coach would be very helpful, because we've never navigated this before. And so we're finding coaching is really increasing, whether you're coaching inside the organization or bringing an outside coach in. I think helping with onboarding new employees or new leaders, that resource is really helpful. So I think it's really getting back to basics of making sure each person that's coming on really gets indoctrined into the culture of the organization through their mission, vision, values, and connecting in with how their role will help the company achieve that.
That's a really interesting point. I mean, if you think about pre-pandemic, I minimized the amount of in-person activity I had with anybody. My calls went to texts, my face-to-face meetings went to emails, and now 8 months later, the shift that's happened has really kind of brought us full circle, right? And now we're like, wait, I need to see somebody. I miss people. I want to call someone on the phone.
That's right. That's right. And really, even getting the work done well requires that we interact and learn from each other. And we've kind of been separated from that. So some of it's still happening, but we have to be intentional.
Yeah, that's a great point. Synergy happens when you have a bunch of people together in a room.
Agreed.
Well, I could talk about this all day long. I could definitely talk for another hour, but to be respectful of everyone's time, that's about as much as we have time for today. I want to thank our keynote speaker again, Jennifer Mackin, and I'm going to head it on over. Oh, and of course to Nathan Shanks for his time as well. And I'm going to hand it on over to Sarah DeVasher Wisdom to close us out.
Thank you, Christine. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Nathan, for being with us today and sharing all of these great insights into talent attraction, retention, and development. I hope everyone has enjoyed today's presentation and is able to leave with some tangible strategies to continue cultivating and retaining leaders within your organizations. We do have 5 books from Jennifer to now give away to attendees, and the winners of those books are Melanie Claypool, Carrie Richardson, Maria Smith, Chuck Summers, and Ray Weiss. We will get in contact with each of you to coordinate getting your books to you. I'd like to again thank our sponsors for their support of this event. Thank you to our presenting sponsor, LG&E KU, our bronze sponsors, Action Coach Business Coaching of Louisville, Tops Louisville, and Travel Host Louisville. I hope you've enjoyed our last Business at Breakfast for the year. We still have plenty of exciting GLI events for 2020. Please join us for our last Capital Connection event featuring Speaker Osborne on December 10th and our 20th Anniversary Incredible Awards on December 16th. We hope to see you there virtually. Thank you and have a great day.